Here for the first time so far are two of the Asbo bikes together in the same place at the same time. We've got this one here is a Royal Enfield 500 Electra X with what some people term as the AVL engine, and on this one I shortened the cylinder barrel by 2mm, modified the crown of the piston to go with that and clear the cylinder head and the valves, and that increased the compression ratio from 8.5 to 1 to 9.2 to 1. And it's also got a set of the Redditch pattern S cams in it, which although they're not a very fierce cam, no great lift or duration on them, these engines seem to rev really well with those fitted, so it's got a set of them in. Not a particular fan of the Mark 1 AMLs, but it's got one of them on, a 32mm, which will help it a bit, although I ran one with a 36mm Mark 2 on it once and that really flew. So it's got that lot. It's got a CDI box on it, which is an upgrade from standard as well, which gives it a little bit more retard at starting and low revs, and a little bit more advance up at the top end. The spread of advance and retard is about 8 degrees wider overall than standard, with an extra 4 degrees or so at each end. And one of these bikes I tuned managed to get over 100 miles an hour. I think this one here is probably good for about 90. It's not in quite such a high state of tune, and it may even be a little high on the gearing, which might be knocking the edge off what it can do in top gear, but nevertheless it's a much more lively bike than it would have been as standard. That one's been in here for some gearbox repair work, as the main shaft second gear can wear on them eventually, and that causes them to jump out of gear now and again. So it's been stripped of, that replaced, and a couple of other modifications I do to the gearboxes just to make them a bit more reliable and durable. So that one in the count is Asbo number 11, and over here I have an earlier one. This is Asbo number 4. The engine in this started off as a bottom end that I bought and stripped. I lightened the crank, lightened the flywheels and rebalanced them. I took about 3 pounds in weight, maybe 3.5 pounds in weight off the flywheels, rebalanced them, rebuilt it all, and this one has got, I believe, the so-called 9:1 American made piston in it. It's got the S cams again, the same as that one, and what else we got? Aluminium cylinder barrel. I ported the head, and yeah, it goes pretty well, this one. This has also got a Mark 1 AML on it, and it's got a 5-speed gearbox as well. What else can I tell you about it? Some of these engines I squish band the heads, but I haven't done that on either of these. We're probably going to dyno this one soon. Interestingly enough, the cams, the S cams that are in both of these engines, they are not timed on the dots. They're the exhaust cams line up with the marks on the timing pinion on the crank, but the inlet cams are actually retarded by one tooth, which is a full 18 degrees off the marks, and that tends to help them rev on a little bit further, at the expense of some bottom end grunt, although with the high compression ratios there's plenty of that anyway. In the case of this one here, the Electra X, I had to retard the inlet cam by one tooth to make sure that the inlet valve cleared the piston, because things get pretty close to each other on these, and you've really got to watch it when you're playing about with camshafts in these engines, otherwise you can end up with bent valves quite easily. So they're both pretty similar. They both got 5-speeders, they both got similar carburetors, they've got the same cams on the same timings, very similar compression ratios. Like I say, I find that the 9:1 American made pistons actually give about 7.75 to 1, but with the cylinder barrel being shortened as well, that will put it up to a true 9:1. So both these bikes are very, very similar in compression ratio, valve timing, carburation, gears, etc. Even the weight of the two bikes is very similar. But I would say, having ridden both of them, they're both very quick, and the acceleration on this one's very, very good. But I would say that the red one, Asbo number 4, with the classic style engine, is probably the faster of the two. And it's also running a 19-tooth gearbox sprocket as well, which is very surprising as it accelerates so well and pulls so well. I would say that it's probably got perhaps 2 or 3 more horsepower than the Electra X Asbo number 11, but we'll be finding out about this one soon enough on the dyno. I would estimate this one to be around perhaps 32 brake horsepower at the rear wheel. This one is probably very high 20s, no more than 30, but both a big improvement over what you get as standard, and both can either be ridden quite sort of gently through the countryside and sit back and enjoy the scenery and plod along, or wind them up and they'll go for you. So yeah, two very enjoyable Royal Enfields, quite different to each other but very, very similar.